Here we are in the bottom left in the red. He is for Team Gozu, their pro version of MeomaikA.
And up here at the top right-hand side of the map, representing Psystorm Gaming, it is our blue Protoss player, Haas. Yeah, and I think you're absolutely right, and it's going to be interesting to see when these players decide to go for their special styles and stuff, as we already do see MeomaikA going for pool first, which is already indicative of the fact that he is going to march to the beat of his own drum. But I think that is the thing about this match that makes it really interesting, is that neither one of these players, and I think this is like something we do always have to address, these players aren't necessarily known for like their mechanical prowess. And it's not necessarily a shot at them, like they're still professional players and they're still quite good at what they do, but their skill set and their strengths are really not in mechanical execution. It's in their strategy. And that is what makes it really fun. This is like a big brain gaming match right here.
It really is. And you talk about big brain gaming. The fun thing for this series for me is when I was going to go play you in the big brain bouts, what was that, a month, 2 months ago? I realized that you play some funky things. So I reached out to Mio and I said, hey, I need some Hydraulins. Like, let me give me some of your builds so I can go and, have fun against Fear Dragon. And he sent me them. So I'm excited here that I get to appreciate, theoretically, some of the builds that he opts to go for at the MeomaikA level of execution. Not at my level of execution. But anyway, the point here, MeomaikA's a sweetheart, right? He quickly won everyone over. Back when he started making his way to international tournaments, when he was at Katowice last year. Of course, he couldn't make it this year, unfortunately. Started to try to convince European Zergs that, in fact, Hydras are useful, and you should not just totally shun them. And then we saw Lambo lose games with Hydras, and then maybe that was a mistake, but, he convinced him briefly.
Yeah. I actually really like when and I like the idea of MeomaikA getting a bit more aggressive in this series earlier on, and even I love the idea of things like the early pool, because one aspect of Haas's play that I do feel like has always been sometimes a bit of a weakness for him is that it kind of comes with the territory, is that he's not doing meta builds. And the reason why meta is meta and why the standard is standard is because it works, and it's not necessarily that it's safe and good against 100% of things, but it's good against most things. And when Haas does his styles and a lot of his build orders and choices, oftentimes is good against certain things, and it's really weak against a lot of other things. And I do think a lot of the time his build order choices are really good against someone playing standard and someone playing a little bit more aggressive or being in his face a bit more often than maybe like a normal Zerg player would be. Sometimes it doesn't do quite as well against, but that's all neither here nor there, because we already see the shapings of what Haas is interested in doing. And also the fact that MeomaikA is looking to do his own kind of shenanigans at the same time.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I was looking at this, I zoomed in on the warp on the robo, because it's like, okay, come on, Haas, what are you up to here? You're blocking your own gas. Like, come on, what is this? But it doesn't matter about blocking your own gas if you're never going to mine from it at all. And Fear Dragon, you talk about marching to the beat of your own drum. This build should look very familiar for anyone who played StarCraft about 4 years ago, right? This is effectively the Marjorie, right? Yeah, it's charge lots, it's a warp prism, it's no gas after you get enough gas for the warp prism, although I guess Haas technically has 1 in gas, so maybe a sentry or something later on. But this hits hard, it hits fast, and MeomaikA, you got to be ready for it right now, which guess what? MeomaikA is 38 drones, pumping roaches, pumping lings. He seems well prepared. The only downside is that he got lair. Normally the hold on this is 41 drones. You don't get the lair, it's just a bunch of roaches, a bunch of lings, because you really don't need that next level of tech. But for Meo, if he is able to survive this, roach speed is going to allow him to kite really nicely as the game goes on.
Yeah, I'm totally with you, and it does feel like MeomaikA has a lot of the tools he needs to ensure he can defend over here and just hard shut this down. I mean, you already see that the Zealots and the Warp Prism are basically on a retreat. As the game goes on, the Roach Ball is going to actually trade more and more cost effectively against the Zealots, because eventually that ball just gets so large that the Zealots don't really have the surface area anymore. It's just like a mass of roaches, and you don't actually have the opportunity to do that much damage over here. And remember, this is It's kind of an all-in here from Haas. There's not really a transition that's planned out. Everything he's doing right now, like getting up a robotics bay and stuff, this is, as you were rightfully pointing out, gonna be off the back of not really being able to take any additional gas geysers or having a very difficult time. He's still only mining off of 1 gas in the main, I think, right now.
Yeah, he is only mining out of 1 gas. Like, the fact that he's getting a robo bay on 1 gas is probably the most ludicrous part of this game.
He just started mining off the 2nd gas. Like, as I was saying that, he decided to start mining off the 2nd gas.
It's not even fully mining off. It's 2 out of 3. Like,
no. Yeah,
it's 5 total workers in gas to get disruptors. Okay, fine, sure, go on, Haas, be Haas. Like, this is ludicrous, but it's fun, and that's the important thing. Although you're right, MeomaikA, he's dodged the bullet here so quickly. He built a bunch of roaches, and that's where we go.
Yeah, I think there's 2 really funny things to mention. One is that MeomaikA still has not really invested in his economy. He's still sitting at 41 workers. But the second thing is that if these zealots do not do so well in this fight over here, this is only half of MeomaikA's army right now. MeomaikA just cleaned up so many zealots, and he still had half of his army moving across the map that he ended up pulling back home. What stops MeomaikA from just going and killing Haas now?
A single disruptor that is, and another one that is halfway done. Clearly, that's gonna kill 88 supply of roaches, especially if the roaches can dive on top of it because they have full vision in roach speed.
Their back and forth movement here almost makes it look like it's one player that has control of all the units. They were perfectly synchronized with that back and forth there. And it's a beautiful disruptor shot.
Yeah,
but it's not actually enough right now.
No, it's really not. I mean, the zealots are getting on top, and that's something, and Haas is desperately warping. And the supply lead is not as bad as it was at one point, but you need more disruptors here. We're going to see the pylons go down. Eventually, this robo's going to get depowered, and eventually MeomaikA's going to find his way in. So Haas needs what? 1, 2, 3 more shots like that. There's going to be another one. Not bad. Another shot goes out, and he's starting to find, you know what? This seems to be enough to force MeomaikA back.
Yeah, it is kind of funny. I do think one thing MeomaikA should still be able to do is deny any 3rd base attempts.
Oh, yeah.
Not that it looks like Haas is immediately thinking about that right now. That's not really seeming to be the thing that's on his mind. But I think that MeomaikA did start thinking about some of the transitions. I think his upgrades and that kind of stuff did come out a little bit slower. It came out to the tail end of all those engagements, but he did at least start up a 4th base during that fight, which I think is going to be a good opportunity for him to get a little bit of a lead. He has 51 workers and stuff now, so I think MeomaikA still has a pretty solid lead over here. He does have to be a little bit wary of it to not take too many more big disruptor hits, but he should have still this game in his favor.
I mean, there are 3 death balls right here, and that can make a big difference. It's only a 40 army supply lead. These disruptor shots are not going to land the way they need to. Even the last one on the right is nice, but yeah, now the Lings are going to surround roaches, get on top. There are only 2 spots and a warp prism, so one of these disruptors is doomed to die, and there we go. Yeah. It made you think for a second. Ooh, okay, well there's a shot. That's nice.
Yeah. Honestly, like, the disruptors can get a ton of damage here and there, and you can already see like those kills are raking up. But the problem is MeomaikA is making such cost-efficient units that he is bleeding out so many units, but still just winning because at the end of the day, the only actual ground army that Haas has, besides just the disruptors, is charge lots, and charge lots do not scale into these numbers.
No, they don't. I do love, by the way, that Haas, he had 3 warp prisms, or 3 disruptors because he'd rallied 1 forward, and the one was very low, so he just kind of stashed it in a corner, said, hey, you know, I'll be back for you, I'll pick you up later, and had the full health ones trying to go and get damage, and because he figured he would probably lose one of them and hopefully trade it out. And it worked out, you know? He kept the disruptor alive, and now it's going to not get much of a shot. Maybe this one, though. Oh, full center mass on the roaches. Again, these are beautiful shots. These are massive shots. 14 kills on this disruptor, 18 kills on the other one. But you're right. It's zealots. It's probes on the other side. MeomaikA has 1-1 now. Attack upgrades on both the roaches and the lings. And there's just not enough production. So another disruptor pops out, and that's, again, going to be a massive shot. But it's 38 army supply to 10 more disruptors will actually stay alive here. And yeah, like, you know, you look at this, and it's like, well, you know, the supply cap's not nearly as bad as it was. Do we give Haas credit? And we give him credit for good shots. But it's unfortunately not going to be enough because now Ling's into the main, and the economy's dead.
Yeah, the wall has been knocked down. MeomaikA is just holding down the Z button. He's actually starting up a Night Storm. And also, not to mention, his upgrades did manage to finish during all of this. So he has 1-1 as well. And the Disruptors, they're great at dealing a lot of damage when there is an army in front of them. But you can see that when there isn't, MeomaikA is going to reign supreme. And he is going to be taking that first game off the back of some... I have to say, like, I'm not 100% sure that MeomaikA was doing this offensively or defensively, but it seemed to me like MeomaikA was just planning to make those units.
I mean,
already. And like, I think he did see like the location. You were pointing this out. The location of the Twilight Council and the Robo basically blocking a gas geyser indicates the natural. You're maybe not thinking, you're not really intending to take those gas guys. You're not intending to play it out a little bit longer term. But it did seem like MeomaikA was like, yeah, I'm gonna start my lair really early for this and go throw down the Roach Warren, pump out units. It seemed like that was kind of his plan anyways.
Yeah, and technically getting the lair right, that like that against Marjorie, at least a couple years ago, that was a recipe for death, right? That's 100 gas, that's 100 minerals that you're not supposed to be spending because it was so tight of a hold. But the meta has evolved. We've had some balance patches since then, and it clearly is not a recipe for death anymore. The host was unable to commit. There were plenty of roaches out in time. And then, well, if you literally only mine enough gas for a warp prism and then you just like keep one in gas to build a Robobay later on. But again, Haas committed to that. You talked about it. You said it's kind of null. And no, it was absolutely a null. And there was no real transition out of there. Even if you try to go for the Robobay, for those disruptors, if you don't get damage done immediately, if you don't establish that momentum and start to equalize the army supply, I mean, what are you going to do?
Yeah, it's a very, very tough spot from that situation. And, well, I think one important thing to note is that build did fall out of favor. Marjorie build fell out of favor when there was a balance patch change, actually. And I think that balance patch change also... Are we switching servers?
Yes, we need to go to Americas because we're playing on Singapore for round 2.
Okay. Got it.
Totally forgot Singapore was on NA for a bit. I'm like, okay, well, or, you know... So we're going to be getting in there very quickly. Babylon is going to be map number 2. And, you know, I like talking about maps a little bit. It's like, okay, what style can this feed into? But I feel like that is simultaneously a really good point to talk about with Haas and MeomaikA, because they, you know, they're going to play builds that are very map specific. But on the flip side, you and I have no idea what they're going to play, so I don't really... We can't say, oh, well, you know, it's Dragon Skills, this PvZ, this is likely to be Glaive Adepts, because that doesn't mean anything for us and MeomaikA.
Yeah. No, I think that's a fair point. Sorry, I was just... You guys... Okay. You guys haven't started the game yet, right? I'm like, I want to be in this game. Yeah. No, sorry. I think you're absolutely right, and it's going to be interesting to see... What would you want to see from Haas in game number 2 then? Because I do think MeomaikA, this goes back to what I was saying before. I feel like when MeomaikA is able to get aggressive first, it kind of is going to complicate things for Haas. I feel like there's more opportunities outside of like cannon rushes and proxy gates and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I do think that Zerg has opportunity to get in Protos's face sooner than Protoss has the chance to get in Zerg's. Like, unless you're going for a straight up all out cannon rusher proxy.
Yeah, I think actually I kind of liked what Haas did in game 1. The idea of going quick charge lots or something, given who MeomaikA has a reputation for being. You know, he's the Hydra guy. He's going to rush into lair. He's going to go off like 45 drones. He's going to go get a bunch of Hydras, and Hydra Ling is not great against charge lots. You know, Lings are not tanky. Hydras are not tanky. You get the Zealots on top of them, and the Hydras die. So the idea there, if that's what Haas was going for, playing, not only, you know, playing his own Haas thing, but playing stylistically against MeomaikA, that makes sense. But if MeomaikA knows that and he scouts it and just drop a Roach Warren, it's not all that great. So I don't know. It's going to be something weird. 7 Oracles and a Charge Lotto and do what Hero did to Dark the other day. You know, go mass blink DTs and snipe a hatch. I mean, I feel like I'm midway down, my hand's midway down into the barrel of Protoss shenanigans. And I'm like grasping for things, you know, oh, this sounds like fun. Like, this is fermented a month. And what I really need to be doing is like down to the bottom of the barrel. Like it's not even fish anymore. It's fish sauce. You know, just get a handful of it, come out. And it's like, yeah, this is fermented for 5 years, and now Haas is ready. And oh man, it smells horrible, but it is delicious.
Yeah, I think that's a fair way of putting it. Is that there is just going to be pulling from the great book of Protoss BS and finding something that makes Haas Haas. I think is the right attitude to have about it. It's just I do think in the back of my head, a lot of the things you were mentioning still make me just think, oh man, all of those things. Like if MeomaikA were to do a similar kind of like early roach push or something along those lines, that still is going to hit before you hit like your big power strike or like that power swing and everything. So I think it'll be very interesting to see what Haas feels like is the right answer to what MeomaikA could be busting out. If MeomaikA is going to continue to just do something that early and aggressive, pre-layer tech, basically flooding out units and stuff, because like you were saying, I know he does have a reputation as being like the Hydra guy and stuff now, but my memories from MeomaikA were actually like him basically doing the pre-layer all-in stuff and being crazy with proxy hatches and fun stuff like that. But you know what? We don't have to speculate too much longer. We finally are able to start up that second game, Beo.
Here we go. And in the bottom right, in the red now, he's up a game in the series off of a bunch of roaches and actually eating a bunch of disruptor shots, but it did not matter. It's MeomaikA.
And up here at the top left-hand side of the map, representing Storm Gaming, he is Haas, our resident mad scientist Protoss player. Who, by the way, we didn't actually talk about this, but in the Swiss format standings and stuff, both these players did win their first matches. Haas ended up defeating MaxEd, MeomaikA ended up defeating Nanami. So both of them are actually still sitting pretty well in the group. Even if they whoever ends up losing this, I think it'll still actually end up being a pretty decent spot for either of them.
Yeah, I think so. Haas and MeomaikA are both players that we expect to go on into the playoffs. I mean, Haas it has won how many now? Taiwan, Hong Kong. Hong Kong tournaments. It's generally Nice or Haas that are winning them. MeomaikA, of course, the king of SCA, as he dubs himself. And that's, one of the upsides and one of the downsides of this new format. And it's that, MeomaikA, Haas, no longer have a region to rule for themselves. They have to, become big sharks in the big pool instead of, big sharks in the tiny pools. They have to run into the likes of Oliveira out of China as well. But for now, hey, you're right. They're both sitting up 1-0. They both took out Chinese players to get here. Yes. And hey, that's something.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're absolutely right. I think there are going to be some of those other scary names like Oliveira and stuff they have to mess with. Coffee being another strong name. Even Nice, I think, actually was starting to do quite well against Haas in the recent couple of years and stuff. So it is going to be very interesting to see how those future rounds of the Swiss format, go. As this is going to be an interesting battle between two of the kings of their respective regions. But for now, let's talk a little bit about this game, because we already do have like that, once again, faster pool from MeomaikA. Leaves a few drones, actually leaves all 3 drones in gas after getting enough to start up Zergling speed and everything. But Haas, in the meanwhile, is actually going for what, in a lot of ways, looks like a much more normal kind of opening so far. He does have an interesting placement on his Stargates. Like, he's not doing it as a part of the wall. He's just doing like a bit further back still inside of his natural, but just kind of leaving the door open for a bit.
He just really likes to hug his gas with his tech building. That's all this is. The Robo had to block gas round 1 for the build to work properly. And now Stargate has to go a little bit further back. Although if you're going to really commit to Stargate play, I can understand wanting to just put a gateway in the wall or something. Because, then the Stargate won't go down. But, a pylon in the wall, that's just... we're not going to get it, right? There's a very quick layer coming in. This smells like Queen Lignitis. Actually, second gas, maybe not. But... pylon on the wall is just begging for Meo to Baneling bust this.
I don't know that he could have done a gate like with the way that he had already walled off his other buildings. I don't know if there's a placement for a gateway that creates like the proper wall, because I think he kind of forced himself into an awkward spot there.
That's fair and all, man. These Lings, just by existing, they force out energy on the Oracle, which means when it runs across the map, it's not going to be able to get nearly as much done. So for now, with Lings on the right side, but it's Oracle, it's already kind of just, nerfed itself a little bit.
Yeah, it's gonna have a little bit less energy. It's gonna be able to try and find a drone over here, but it has to back off. But that also means that there's nothing back at home to help deal with the lings that are poking away at the third. Void Ray is about to pop out, so it should eventually be able to batter back these lings and make sure that they aren't doing too much. But even though it's actually just going for the Overlord first, as the Oracle decides to come back home. And there's not another Oracle or anything coming on out. It was the Void Ray after the Oracle. So this one Oracle not being on the other side of the map, it's a little bit unfortunate, and I think it's a good usage of these lings from MeomaikA to like keep this Oracle back home. But it means that Haas is kind of sitting a bit more in the dark about like the timing of this Hydra Den and everything else. And now he's used all of his energy.
Yeah, I'm a little bit worried for Haas right now. I by the way, I'm ashamed. I talked about how MeomaikA gave me some Hydra builds and like it was great. You know, I learned to play them. I should have recognized this for what it is. I mean, this is a Hydraling all-in off 40 drones. Like, this is one of MeomaikA's bread and butter builds. And as the third base gets canceled, I mean, he's going to try to take it again, but lings are going to continue to shark around. And yeah, Void Ray kills these eventually, but not for quite a while. And then the question now becomes, what in the world is yeah, okay, another probe goes down. And so you're still not going to get that third. But what is Haas going to have defensively? Actually, as I say that, charge is halfway done. 5 gateways, 6 gateways on the map. Like, maybe I don't hate this. Maybe this isn't bad after all.
Yeah, okay, I may be miscounting gateways and stuff as we're trying to play the math of how many warp gates are there as warp gates or gateways are turning into warp gates. I think it's 8 gateways though. 8 gateways, and here's the thing. The reason why the Marjorie build became less popular is because there was a nerf where charge used to do damage on the actual charge happening. It doesn't do that anymore. It does guaranteed, like, first hit, you get your swipes off and stuff, but it doesn't do the extra damage. And that actually made a big difference, especially versus things like Zerglings, because it meant that you could 2-shot them. +1 weapons compensates for that. With +1 weapons, you will 2-shot the Zerglings.
Oh no.
And this suddenly actually looks like if he can keep these Zealots alive long enough for +1 weapons to finish and for another round of reinforcements, I actually feel like it's not a guarantee, but Haas has an opportunity in this fight.
He does, but oh man, that fight in the middle of the map there before +1 was done, it was kind of scary, but hey, now Hydra's on the other side and Zealots are just getting right on top. And these are tanky things. So the Hydras, they're cutting away desperately. They have those buffs, right? They move faster off creep now with the upgrade, and they have the better attack time, but they're all dead. And they can only kite so far out against charge, and Haas holds on. I talked about how I was worried about this, and well, you know what? Actually, this is what we were talking about between games. Haas goes to charge lot timing against Hydra or against Meo's love of Hydras, and it works out very well indeed.
I actually think +1 weapons was so important for that to work out. You'll see again, like as these Zerglings try and pick off some of these probes and stuff, the Zealots actually tear through these Zerglings once they have +1 weapons. This is like such an old school sort of thing that you don't really see play that big of an impact anymore in PvZ, but +1 weapons used to be a massive deal for Zealots versus Zerglings, and it's been a long time, but it's still very much so true. The difference between 3-shotting those Zerglings and 2-shotting, it's a massive difference in the damage output for these units.
Oh, it
this I don't know if I agree with though.
Yeah, this is hey, it's like, wow, you know, I just killed your army. I can surely run across the map 2 minutes later and kill everything again. No, Haas, that's a little bit too big for yourself right there. Meanwhile, I mean, he had Templar Archives done. He's building 4 Archons here. He's advancing his tech to the next level. Imagine if he had 10 Zealots on top of that. You like it a little bit more as the Banelings. It's only 5 of them morphing in, so that's not going to be all that great. The Hydras are just on top of the Archons, which is, again, not where you want to be. The Lings fight the Zealots before the Banelings even complete. But even still, the Hydras, they're going to start to get targeted down here. Last one of the Archons stays alive, just barely. And this is what we want to see, right? Tug of war in the middle of the map. Both players' economy, actually, Haas's economy is not bad. Meo, though, he's on 42 drones, and come hell or high water, he's going to end this game in the next 5 minutes, dang it.
Yeah, he is very dependent on ending this game sooner rather than later. Or at a minimum, he needs to kill the third base. Like, that is the absolute minimum amount of damage that MeomaikA needs right now. Haas, he just has to hold on for as long as possible, and I do think he actually has the tools available to make that happen now. +2 weapons finishing up means these Archons are going to do absurd amounts of damage. The Zealots, as long as they can survive against some of these Baneling connections, they are going to wreak havoc on the Zerglings, on these Hydras. You can see that he is actually, in fact, taking care of most of this army, and Haas is going to reign supreme in the end. ties up the series 1-1. Let's go.
Yeah, you know, I was worried about that. Like the Hydra's running against the Stargate openers, like, okay, wow, you know, this feels really good. And then you realize, wait a minute, those are +1 charge lots. You know, that's going to do a much better job. And now we need to go back to Taiwan for map number 3. So we cycle back on over. It's going to take a little bit longer for map 3 to get started, of course. But yeah, I think this is kind of what we were talking about after map 1. Fear Dragon. It's like, okay, you know how MeomaikA plays. You know what he's famous for right now. Throw a build out there that is just going to do really well with a bunch of linked Hydras and a bunch of +1 Zealots. That kind of fits the bill.
Yeah, I'd be very curious to hear Haas's thoughts on, like, did he select that build out playing to the reputation that MeomaikA has as being like the Hydra link kind of player and stuff? Because, I mean, realistically, the Oracle was moving around for Haas, and I'm trying to think about, like, what did it actually see? He didn't actually see the timing of the Hydra Den and stuff, but maybe I guess he could try to infer, like, the timing of the lair, how many drones he saw, and things like that, that there was a decent chance there could be some kind of big Hydra Ling attack or something, knowing MeomaikA. And that, if that was the case, and that was kind of his thought process around that, also seeing that his third base is going to have trouble going up, I love the reaction to go for that +1 weapon, big charge lot attack, because it's such a clever way to deal with, like, this old school style from MeomaikA being responded with an old school style from Haas, with a slight twist of charge doesn't do the extra damage, so I'll just research +1 weapons nice and early on to get the extra damage anyways.
Yeah, close enough,
I love it.
right?
I love it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I don't know though, right? Like, how much of that is reactivity? Okay, he's going Ling Hydra. And how much of that is Haas just wanted to go for a +1 8-gate charge lot Archon timing?
Yeah.
You know, that
exactly.
It worked out really well. It might be something in the back of your mind that, okay, MeomaikA might go some 40 drone Ling Hydra or something, but I feel like Haas did something. I don't think he got a Void right, but when he killed Solar in WTL last season, I want to say it was just a +1 charge lot Archon timing, something like that. So we already know that is kind of within his bailiwick of builds, and it just, in this case, it really worked out well against the MeomaikA shenanigans.
Yeah, honestly, I feel like watching these two, a bit of it is kind of just like chemistry, where it's like, it's watching a chemist just experiment and do things, and you're like, I'm not 100% sure what things he's trying out for the first time and seeing what happens with this chemical reaction, and what things just are entirely intentional. He's like, I'm gonna make this compound first and then see what it does when I mix it with this other thing. Like, it's so fascinating to watch. But we are heading into game number 3, and of course with these two players, we're already starting this stuff. So let's talk about what's going on.
Yep, in the bottom left, in the red, he's got early pool. Let's see what he's going to do with this one. MeomaikA.
Up here at the top right-hand side of the map, our blue Protoss player, he is Haas. And just to note, that early pool is not the same kind of early pool as we've had in the previous games, as far as I'm aware. The other games, you were having like Overlord, like a 15 or something, like a pool first, but not necessarily a 12 or like a 13 pool or something. This one, I missed the exact timing on it, but this was like a pre-14 pool.
This was a 12 pool.
Yeah.
And that's actually really interesting, because I can't really remember the last time I saw a Zerg go for a 12 pool. It really does feel like it's fallen out of the meta. Protoss players have gotten very good at defending it, and certainly maps are, I think for the most part, a little bit bigger than what we're kind of used to seeing when we see these 12 pool builds. And Ancient Cistern is a big map, so the Lings are going to show up. Haas already has part of a wall, and the probe scouts it, so Haas knows what he needs to do to defend. Well, immediately as Ellie gets the Corona'd out, but can you actually... Well, yeah, the probes are going to have to get pulled. There's the wall. Okay, so there we go. Now the question is, how much does he commit to this is the better question. There's a couple probes already going down. I mean, this is pretty nice.
Yeah, actually, Haas was doing a really good job with the micro up until like a certain moment where we saw 4 or 5 probes go down in like the span of, I want to say, a few seconds. He was doing so well pulling back a lot of those probes, but at the end of the day, MeomaikA definitely getting some good damage done over there. Is it enough though? 5 workers, remember, it is like an early pool commitment and everything alongside all the links and everything. I think it is still probably pretty good for MeomaikA, right?
Oh, dude, this is absolutely worth it. This was only 6 lings. Like, when you go for a 12 pool, you go 8 to 12 lings, and you kind of sit out there, and it's the Protoss has to try to figure out, okay, how much do the Zerg commit here? Is it non-committal 8-ling pool? Is it like go to 12 lings? Like, how much do I have to put in front? How many units do I need to make? Whatever. MeomaikA just spent his first 3 larvae on lings. So that's, 300 minerals right there on lings that are, okay, that's something. But this is not nearly as committal as it might otherwise be. And yeah, you're going to have to build a couple lings on the backside of this to deal with the counter adept. Often what is counter adept zealot pressure, because again, you do have to build those units early on. But if MeomaikA gets away with it, doesn't take any damage on the counter, which I wouldn't think he would. He knows how this works. He's in a wonderful spot. He forced how many probes off the line? He killed 4 or 5 of them. I mean, yeah, this is absolutely worthwhile.
Yeah, I do think it is going to be a little bit tougher since Zergling speed gets so delayed, and that means that the Adepts have a little bit more opportunity to do things, but they do need to shade into the actual mineral line to take advantage of those kind of things and be able to evade around against, say, the Queens running around. These Adepts getting so close to dying. One of them finally does get picked off with a shade. The other one does manage to finish up. Manages to actually, very importantly, not just get some of these drone kills, he scouts out the Roach Warren timing over here and should know MeomaikA is planning to go for a bigger attack off of just these 2 bases.
And that was beautiful, by the way. That micro with these Adepts, as this one will finally go down. That micro with the Adepts just ring around the rosy, the healthy one just sitting there as a tower defending the other one. I mean, that was 8 lings for 2 Adepts. Again, we're talking about math a little bit in this early game because these things are very mathed out. You build 8 to 12 lings off a 12 pool. You need 4 lings per Adept, or it's kind of the math there, something like that. The fact that Haas kept his Adepts alive against the mathed out proper number of lings, and then got a couple drones and got a cancel on a gas. Actually, it seems like Meo wanted that gas anyways, but killed a bunch of more. I think he got 1 spore cancel. That's actually a really big deal when we talk about this. But also, you're talking about, Meo going for this Roach time. His lings get their way into the main. Haas is also going for his own level of shenanigans. He's got an Immortal in that Warp Prism, but for now, the lings in the main base, they're going to have to, they're going to slow this down a little bit.
So, such a disaster. There was literally, I want to say, a 4-second gap where Haas loaded up his units from the wall into the Warp Prism and queued up a pylon to fully wall in. And during that exact moment, the Zerglings happened to be going toward the wall and ran straight past everything, scouted everything, which was also really critical because MeomaikA was droning up. He was trying to transition out and say, all right, well, this attack isn't going to work. You've seen this coming. Now he's just making spine crawlers, roaches, and nonstop nothing but units to help defend over here.
Yeah, the spine is maybe a little bit vulnerable. Of course, it's in front of the roaches, but I mean, yeah, you just pull everything back here, wait for the spine to pop. You got 3 queens. Actually, the queens are in front of the roaches. This is a big problem right now. They're going to get knocked down before they really have much room to transfuse whatsoever. And yeah, they're a bit of a wall, but there's a Ravager in front as well. If there ever was a fight that Haas was going to win, it's got to be this one. And now the roaches, they're desperately kiting away, but your anti-air is mostly gone. So this Warp Prism can micro as much as you would like. Ravagers have started to die, and now it's all down to the drones. The Immortal, it gets saved, and MeomaikA looks still like he may be able to hold on to this, but that was an absolute disaster of an initial fight.
Yeah, I think the blessing in disguise there is that the roaches, they did manage to reduce a lot of the surface area that these zealots have. A lot of them are sitting on the back line, not able to attack. And at the end of the day, even though the Immortal's getting some big shots off, and it did stay alive for a really long time, it finally goes down. And MeomaikA is able to defend